shut off. They instantly stop communicating, which is not a magnetometer anomaly of some sort. And, for me, that's an extreme interaction with beings from all over the universe. It's just an amazing experience, and it's available to everybody.
It is available to everyone, and it's interesting because now we have an iPhone and an Android app where the meditation protocols and techniques and all that's in there, and actually will turn your smartphone into a magnetometer. They'll turn it into a magnetic field meter, although your phone isn't going to be as good as one of these commercial devices that we use, and I know that Bill has gotten as well. The other thing I want to point out is that while we're having these conversations with these electronic devices, we're also having the remote view experience where in consciousness we're seeing these beings, and then around us with our physical eyes we're seeing these energy forms, and many of them, a lot of the photographs that Emery Smith and other people have taken, Deb Warren, there will actually be beings there. And if you go to CSETI.org, you'll see a picture that was from 3 years ago where an ambassador from the Andromeda Galaxy literally was there in this electronic astral projection. It's as if it was like the Rosicrucians, but if you could electronically digitize your astral body and make it appear so it could be in a photograph, that's what this looks like, hovering right outside our circle during our contact protocol in Joshua Tree National Park. And for many people, all this sounds so futuristic and far out, and yet I tell people, but it totally makes sense that the primary science of any interstellar civilization is the science of consciousness and this kind of knowledge, because once you go beyond the speed of light, you are in these other dimensions that are increasingly like a lucid dream or an astral body projection or a deep meditation that's very visual. And I always tell people that the number one way that humans have had contact with these other civilizations over the millennia of known human history have been in these sort of states of consciousness, although along with that we will then have these electromagnetic manifestations and even craft fully materialize around us or in the sky and fly over, which, of course, we have on videotape and photograph. But it happens on every dimension. So it's physical, it's electromagnetic, it's in thought and consciousness, and it's very personal because there's this deep personal and emotional and spiritual connection that begins to develop with these ETs, because they're actually very excited, is what I've been told for the last 20-some years that I've been training people to do this since 1990, that there are groups of people who are beginning to understand the science of consciousness and the science of the next millennium, of the ending of the Mayan calendar is next week, but it's really the end of that old world that's stuck in the box of linearity and 3D, and the opening of a whole another understanding where the conscious dimension of the cosmos, even scientifically, will be added to our culture in terms of higher states of consciousness and technologies that reflect that higher state of consciousness. And this is required in order for anyone to be an ambassador from Earth to these people, which is what we call our training program, as ambassadors to the universe, because we feel that unless someone becomes adept in this process of meditation and remote viewing and understanding this new cosmology that incorporates the conscious universe along with these new high-tech electromagnetic, very high voltage scalar systems, they're not going to be able to understand any contact they're going to have with an ET civilization. They're not going to be able to even comprehend the various ways that ETs will manifest in your backyard or in your room or out under the stars in a national forest somewhere, because you'll have no foundation for understanding it, because we're dealing with civilizations that are anywhere from several 100,000 to several million years technologically more developed than we are now. And for us to begin to have an experience that begins to make any sense, we have to develop a paradigm and very specific technical understanding so that we can comprehend how they're interacting with us, what they're saying, how they're saying it. And that's what this whole week-long training process is for, although The week goes by very quickly, and we always feel like we should be there for a month or two. But people have had one of the great things about Dr. Gray is that he gave himself to this in a very pure-hearted way, and as I see it as the teacher of this, is that he gave himself to it in a way that was pure-hearted and wholehearted, and that's why he had these breakthroughs so quickly. And I've seen this happen before. The thing that keeps people from being able to do this is that their intellect gets in the way, and they say, oh, I can't do this, or I won't do it. Instead of just following the protocols and going with the flow of it, and if you kind of just give yourself and go with the flow of it, it's really easy.
One thing I might add, just as in case people aren't too familiar, is the fusion in consciousness that happens in communing with the ETs is not like a trance state. It's not like you're, becoming a medium and you're not yourself and you're becoming them. It's a real intimate connection with another consciousness, but with full awareness and respect, actually, for your own consciousness. So it's a two-way street interaction.
Right.
And you can always, if you decided that you were bored or you wanted to do something else, they are completely and totally respectful that way. And on the other hand, if you're very open and ask them to show what they're doing, what their daily life is, and all that sort of thing, they're perfectly happy to do that.
Right, and the same begins to extend into the sort of more 3D aspects. I mean, I have found that when you open up a link to these interstellar civilizations and you let them know that you're willing to let them communicate through a radar detector or a magnetometer, and that you're open to that, then it will happen because they know that you put your awareness on it and that you're alert to that. So what my experience has been over the years is that this is an evolving thing, and I think another thing that's so beautiful is that they want it to be interactive, and they're not going to do things beyond what people are ready for. But if you're ready for it, then it's like, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, anything's the limit.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's so wonderful. And then it can continue in the lucid dream state or, just in your own meditations when you're on your own. And I tell people that we're at this point. Right now, everyone thinks that this is sort of a cycle with the ending of the Mayan calendar and everything that is about Earth, but it's not. It's actually a universal cycle that this big Earth cycle is coinciding with. So what's happening is that we're syncing up with a big universal cycle of unity, of higher consciousness that is sweeping not just Earth, but the entire cosmos. And so there's this potentiation. And, within the next few hundred years, every planet in the physical cosmos is going to be united. And that process, though, is being accelerated right now. And so it's not just about world peace. It's about universal peace. It's not just about a new human cycle. It's a universal cycle. And so we're in a universal moment. And this is really an amazing thing to contemplate. And when you step into doing this, because I joke often that, Hillary Clinton isn't doing this, and she's our Secretary of State, and the UN Secretary Generals and the ones I've met with and dealt with personally aren't doing this. Therefore, who's doing this on Earth? Well, it has to be we the people, and it has to be people who have a certain level of enlightened knowledge about consciousness and remote viewing and very advanced electronic technologies, and how faster than the speed of light civilizations who are capable of reaching here might manifest. And there's this latest book we put out a couple years ago called Extraterrestrial Contact, Countdown to Transformation, which you can find at Amazon.com and also at etcontactnow.com. I think that if you look at that book, it has, kind of a synopsis of decades of these sorts of experiences from our group, And there's also a DVD that comes with it that has a number of really amazing images of contact that's happened over the years. But what we find is that it really doesn't matter where you are. A lot of people say, well, do you have to be, at Mount Shasta, or do you have? I said, no. I mean, I think, Bill, you can tell people you live out in an area in
I'm in the mountains above San Jose, between San Jose and Santa Cruz, and there's really nobody around.
Right.
And so it's completely isolated, but it happens every single night for me.
Yeah. Exactly. And so once that contact is made, it begins to continue, and it will continue, and it can happen in all kinds of enigmatic ways. And people have to be open to the idea that it can happen in the meditative state, it can happen in the dream state, it can happen in three-dimensional space-time with a craft or a being that's right there. And they're very eager for people to learn to do this because they know that this next phase in human existence is one of the development of not just material sciences that would get us off of oil and gas and coal, which we certainly need to do and really should have happened 100 years ago, but also the ability to understand mass cancellation technologies, things that enable, for example, a craft to achieve zero mass and therefore blip into another dimension and go from one star system to another. And of course, this has been done in classified programs that I'm aware of. But humans are going to have to begin to understand a whole new area of science that isn't being taught at Caltech and MIT and what have you, because these have been unfortunately kept secret. This is why my autobiography sort of is called Hidden Truth, Forbidden Knowledge, because all of this has been hidden, and it's sort of a forbidden area to talk about it. And yet I find that when I talk to people who work or have worked with the CIA or very classified programs at Lockheed, they smile and go, yes, of course. I mean, this is where the action has been for decades. But the public doesn't know. What we're trying to do is bridge this big gulf, not only in terms of science and technology, but in consciousness and understanding, but put it into a paradigm of, instead of it just being a material science, it's really the foundation of a whole new understanding of reality, of ourselves, and it crosses into the healing arts, it crosses into communication systems and into our whole place in the cosmos. And while it's not a religious undertaking, it's a spiritual undertaking, because the root of it is the understanding of this, the oneness of consciousness and mind that is the foundation of all existence. And even physical material existence is actually consciousness phasing and resonating as atoms and subatomic particles and quarks and photons and what have you. And so once you begin to understand how the science of consciousness integrates into the new physics and these new energy sciences, but also that these technologies that are communication devices that ET civilizations have, those interface with clear, coherent thought emanating from a deep and quiet level of consciousness as easily as you and I deal with talking on a cell phone. And that sounds really magical to people when they first hear about it, and they think, oh, this can't be, and it's crazy. But you know what? If you went back, I live down the road here from Thomas Jefferson's house. If you went back a couple hundred years and showed Thomas Jefferson an iPhone or an Android phone with video streaming and FaceTime and Skyping and everything else, they would think that you were a witch or a warlock, or it would just be completely magical. And that's only 200 years. So we're dealing with civilizations that are in the thousands and in some cases millions of years more developed than we are right now. And so we have to have enough humility to understand that we have to explore and open our minds to these possibilities. And it's this impulse for curiosity and exploration and open-mindedness that's really so important if you're going to be an ambassador from humanity at this time in history to these civilizations. And I think that's the other thing. There's sort of a childlike innocence and joy of this kind of experience, isn't it, Bill? I think for many of us.
Yes, and it's mutual. they're as childlike and innocent and learning about us as we are about them.
Right.
I mean, they're far advanced, but